Let's go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to M&M In The Morning. I'm Misty here with my partner, Mercedes Colwin. Hi, Mercedes.
Hey, Misty. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you today? Monday. Oh, my God. December 2nd. December begins. The Thanksgiving week is over. I was inundated when I was doing segments this weekend, and so I was posting them on Instagram. And I was inundated with memes and all sorts of content about the anxiety level of returning to work after that holiday week. Because basically what people were saying is that, yeah, it's a week, you get Thursday, Friday off, but there's so much planning, preparation, so much to do with your family, cleanup, that a lot of people didn't really feel refreshed. And so the prospect of Monday was extra scaries. The Sunday scaries were a little extra than normal.
Even the traffic was horrendous this morning. I think a lot of people took in that extra day. They didn't fly out yesterday. They were flying out today. So I was dropping off a family member at the airport. Boy, it was really crazy. But so fun, though. You had a great time, I'm sure. You were hosting.
Yeah, so much fun. How about you?
We hosted lots of food. I'm actually still eating leftovers today. It's 4 days later. I think this is the cutoff. I think 4 days is just about the cutoff. I can't eat another bite of turkey after today.
I know. I got these really cute Tupperware containers with fall pictures on them on the tops. So they were really on theme. They were very much
how sweet.
Yeah, I got them at Home Goods. All the fall stuff was on sale. So I got them at Home Goods and I got a stack of like 20 of them for $5. And so I sent everybody home with food. Take it, please. Take as much food as you can. I'm begging you. So I sent everyone home with leftovers. How'd your tree go? Did you get your tree up?
I did. I did my nautical tree and I did the regular tree and I have the menorah up. Because I'm thinking it looks so pretty right now. It's just dark. So I might have the menorah start lighting, maybe put all the lights and then go to lighting each one once Hanukkah begins. Because Hanukkah and Christmas overlap this year.
I saw that on the calendar.
That's
unusual, right?
It is
that doesn't
unusual.
happen that often.
So it's kind of nice because although Christmas sort of eclipsed Hanukkah just because we do little gifts during Hanukkah, but for the most part, it's the big gifts are given during Christmas. So it's kind of nice. So we'll be able to overlap. So there'll be more gifts under the menorah, under the tree, everywhere.
Oh, that's so much fun. I love that. Yeah, I officially switched everything out. I've got my Christmas cups.
Oh, love it.
Got the whole 9 yards. So something that I thought was interesting that a lot of people are buzzing about, given that there was a holiday weekend. So I think a lot of documentaries, movies, all sorts of content, because people were with their families and had the opportunity to sit down and watch some of these that maybe you didn't have time to watch during the hecticness leading up to Thanksgiving and during the work week. But one that is really making the headlines is the Martha Stewart documentary. This one everybody is talking about it. And interestingly enough, she really, really explains and goes after why she thinks she was targeted.
Because, that was overcharge. I covered Martha Stewart pretty extensively back then. I'm sure you did too. And she was definitely overcharged. And I remember the presiding judge, it was Judge Cedarbaum, was very aggressive towards, at least that's been reported. I mean, obviously there are no cameras in the courtroom. She was very angry at the over prosecution of Martha Stewart because she had charges that have no basis in reality. There were no legal basis there were charges against her for insider trading. And the judge ultimately dismissed those charges. And what she ended up having to go to trial for is she obviously had multiple charges, but one of them that stuck and obviously she was convicted of was lying to the feds.
Right.
So it wasn't even the original crime.
Right. So she spoke about this at length, the federal obstruction of justice charges and the trial, and that led to her 5-month stint in prison beginning in 2004. And that was 5 years after she became the first self-made female billionaire in 1999. So I thought this was interesting. And this was her quote. That's why I want to read it exactly.
Sure.
This is a quote from the documentary. "It was so horrifying to me that I had to go through that to be a trophy for these idiots in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I mean, she's really no holds bar in this documentary. Her interviews are, she's just saying whatever she thinks and really reflecting on her life. It's a really interesting documentary, whether you're a fan of her or not, or had been following her for many, many years, or maybe just know her name.
Right.
Either way. And she's had a real resurgence in the past couple of years. You know, she has a show with Snoop Dogg and she does all of these appearances. And there's a whole other generation of people that know her in a different way than I think we did as like the, you know, the perfect homemaker and all the great recipes and perfect decor. She's kind of evolved so much. Yeah, she's evolved so much. Yeah.
I remember seeing her in the courtroom. She really held her own. Her daughter was in the courtroom with her just about every day. But I'm glad. I'm going to have to watch it. I did not watch that. I watched Hot Frosty instead.
Oh, I watched that too. Yeah,
Isn't that so cute?
It was a little bit of like a more serious content, and then the most ridiculous content you could ever imagine. But I loved the movie. I thought it was so cute.
I loved it.
I think Lacey Chabert is really, really. She does a great job in those Christmas movies. She's very, very relatable.
Yes.
And it's a heartwarming story. And you know there's going to be a happy ending. Although I don't want to spoil anything for Hot Frosty, but I was a little worried towards the end of that.
So was I. And you guys, M&M's, you have to watch it. It is very schmaltzy, cute. I think it's really fun. So I've watched it. And what did I watch? All for the Holidays. That was another cute one.
Did you watch the one with Lindsay Lohan?
Yes, I loved it.
Very
I loved
cute.
it. It was very cute.
Very, very cute.
So yeah, I got my fill. I'll have to start up again this coming weekend. While I'm wrapping gifts, I will be watching it in the background.
Yeah, there's so many because there's a ton of Hallmark movies, but now Netflix is kind of in on that. And they actually replay, or I guess for the season, they must put on the platform a bunch of other Hallmark movies that are from the past couple of years.
So
there's just so much that you can catch up on just with Netflix. But I liked the Lindsay Lohan one. What's called Our Little Secret.
It was so sweet. Loved it.
Yeah, that was really good. But both of them were very cute.
And I did something else. I went to see Wicked. Have you seen it yet?
No, I have not.
Obsessed, Misty. Obsessed. I got the Advent candle. There was an Advent calendar that you can buy in the store. I bought that too. Sent that over to my family. They're going to love it. Yeah, obsessed. It was amazing. But sold out. I mean, we were so close to the screen that Len was like a little nauseous. He's like, I have to take my glasses off.
Do you have one of those theaters where you can book the seat in advance, or is it just first come, first serve?
Yes. I'm sure
but there's nothing left. Oh my gosh.
There's nothing left except for the ones that were like, we watched the movie sort of like this, with our heads back looking up at the screen. But it was all well worth it. Great movie. Highly, highly, highly recommended. It is absolutely worth all the buzz that you hear. It's 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think also how popular it is. I think it's 96% amongst the viewers that have seen the movie. So I can't sing. I know you can. You're a great singer. So maybe you'll sing a few tunes after you watch that movie.
I heard there's a sing-along somewhere that they were doing a sing-along presentation of the movie, which I thought was fun. Yeah, I'm going to see it eventually. I just didn't have time to see it this weekend, but I was busy watching Martha Stewart, I guess. I didn't have time to see it. Yeah, but I'm definitely going to watch it. I love the Broadway show. I saw it years and years and years ago, so it's going to be fun to watch it on the big screen. And there's been so much publicity surrounding it. People are going nuts for it, which is fun. I think it's great. It's great when there's something that's really capturing everybody like that.
I may take a page out of your playbook and be Glinda this year. That's how much I loved it, because you were an amazing Glinda. I told you.
You'd be a good Dorothy, though, I think. You'd be a really good Dorothy.
I think that's what you do. Yeah. I like Dorothy. You were born to be Glinda. I think Dorothy, I can vibe with Glinda, with Dorothy. I'll bring a little stuffed animal.
Yeah. I mean, I think either way, you could nail it no matter what. Okay. You just need a red wig. You'll be fine.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, I'm glad we got to catch up after the holiday weekend, diving into December. Can't believe how close we are to the holidays and ultimately to the end of the year. This time of year goes by so fast, but we have to get down to business. Let's talk about the cases that were unfolding. We caught everybody up last week on Diddy, but there's a couple of new there's a new civil case that everybody's really talking about. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And also the closing argument scheduled in Diddy Penny today. A lot to unpack as we dive back into reality after the holiday week. So let's get into it. All right, M&Ms, let's go.
Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this?
Okay, so we brought you the update on Diddy. Bail's denied. It is really, 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 really unlikely that he's going to have a chance at bail moving forward. That was his best shot. That last application to the court. There is still, just so everybody's aware, there's still a pending appeal. So the appellate court could theoretically overturn these decisions, but it is very, very unlikely. So it is off to the races now to get prepared for trial. And that's where this case is. It is unlikely that we're going to see much more on that bail front outside of maybe an argument before the appellate court. It's very unlikely for that to be granted. There's a lot of deference to the trial court judges who've already made this determination now 3 times. So what does that mean? That means this case is on the fast track to trial, currently still scheduled for May. We've not seen a superseding indictment, which is something that many are predicting will be coming at some point in the future. Whether or not it does, we don't know, but we're keeping an eye on it. But Mercedes, as we know, there are so many civil cases. So that's all the criminal trial. There's so many civil cases that are coming out of the woodwork, and a lot of them have very, very similar themes. But there's one that was just filed recently that many people are kind of, even if you thought you couldn't be shocked by any of the allegations, this one had allegations that really, really, really shocked the public.
Yeah.
And this is a fashion designer who's suing Diddy and alleging abuse, including claims that he threatened to kill her and dangled her from a 17th floor balcony.
Crazy.
I mean, This is something a bit different than we've seen before. The suit claims that Combs dangled her off a 17-story balcony at his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura's Los Angeles apartment building in September of 2016. So that's something that I think is important when we're talking about these allegations, because they span such a long period of time. So these allegations are for 2016, and it says the only purpose of dangling someone over a balcony is to actually kill them or to intentionally terrorize them and rob them of any concept of dominion over their own bodily autonomy and safety. So that's a quote from the lawsuit. So basically, it's another allegation that he engages in violent or threatening conduct in order to get people in his sphere to comply with whatever it is he wants them to comply with. So this one, though, really, a lot of people are talking about it because the thought of being dangled over a 17th floor balcony is really not only horrible, but it's difficult to even envision how that could happen in Los Angeles and that somebody wouldn't see it or somebody wouldn't be screaming or calling the police or the cops or the fire department.
And that's why making sure her counsel has represented her to make sure that everyone understands the level of terror that she was experiencing at that time is so important, because the first question she will be asked during cross-examination: did you call the police? Did you speak to your family? Did you speak to anybody? Did you speak to friends? Did you scream? Did you cry? Like all those things that you would normally have in a reaction? But it is such an extreme alleged criminal act that she is saying this occurred to her back in 2016. It has to be that extreme to explain away. One, I was in shock. No, I didn't scream. No, I didn't call the police because I was terrified. No, I didn't tell my family because he threatened to kill me. I thought that that telling my family would put them at risk too. Like all the point counterpoint has to be done, but it has to start with how terrified were you when this happened? Hey, we're sitting here at work. We're not thinking about what could it be like. We're up on the 28th floor of a skyscraper. Can't imagine. In a 17th floor apartment off a balcony, pretty much the same, 10 floors down. how extreme that is, the fear that she must have endured during that time. If obviously these are all allegations, we'll have to see how it develops. But it certainly sounds that there's enough specificity from the complaint that there's some plausibility to it.
Right. And another connection that I think is interesting. So to your point, number one, he's already made a statement. His legal team has made a statement that he denies the allegations. But let's take this year just as a year in time. So the video of Cassie that we've all seen, the one that went very public, the one that was also a significant part of the bail hearings. So we've been talking about it a lot in the context of this case because it has come up as part of the prosecution's argument that he is a danger to society, that he's acted violently towards those individuals in his life. And that video is a depiction of it, right? So that is from March of 2016. This is allegedly September of 2016. So I think it's interesting because the allegation also involves Cassie. It happens at her apartment. And so we know from Cassie's publicly filed lawsuit that this time frame of 2016 is a significant time frame relating to the conduct as Cassie alleged it in her civil lawsuit and his violent behavior. So there's something to maybe putting it together and looking at those allegations in more of a chronological format, right? Even though they're different lawsuits, the court won't do that. I'm not saying that from the civil perspective. The court's going to look at them individually, although Cassie could most certainly be a witness in her case.
Sure.
Right? She would likely be a witness in her case. That being said, just talking about looking at the overall picture and putting together that time frame, it's interesting to see that that's both 2016 months apart. And again, his legal team has come out, vehemently denied it, said that this individual who filed the lawsuit had made representations previously that she intended to file the lawsuit. They said there's no veracity. She went out, she got a lawyer. They filed the lawsuit. There's not a lot of safeguards. We know this in civil litigation. Complaints are mere allegations, and then there's ways to attack those allegations during the process. But filing it, there's not a lot of ways to stop somebody from filing a lawsuit. So we'll see how that plays out. But that one was a little bit of a, whoa. I think for a lot of people, it's very, very disturbing. And a lot of people were taken aback by an allegation that, of course, it's an allegation of violence, but it's so extreme.
And is it really that surprising given, look, there are obviously going to be individuals out there in the public that are going to believe the allegations that she's raised in the lawsuit because exactly to your point, the Cassie Ventura tape is so disturbing. In fact, I actually saw, I was talking about Diddy over the weekend and I showed that video to a family member that had not seen it. They were in shock. They were in absolute shock. I said, oh, could you imagine? We've seen it like 50 times.
I know. Well, we're looking at it from the perspective of how it applies in the case, but it never gets easier to watch. It's always horrible.
Exactly. Horrible.
And something I think from the court of public opinion, not the court of law,
right? The
court of public opinion is just the way that everything unfolded. Mm-hmm. That he denied the conduct in her lawsuit, which became public. Denied the conduct. That allegation was a central part of the conduct. Settled the case.
Yep.
All this other stuff happens. Then the tape becomes public. So in the eyes of just the public, how do you not lose credibility?
Right. Exactly.
How do you not lose credibility when you say, oh, I vehemently deny these allegations. They're all lies for the purposes of financial gain. Okay, well, and by the way, you would take every single allegation that this was, and part of his argument now is that this was a tumultuous relationship, but it doesn't apply to the federal statutes that he's being charged with. It was a bad relationship of a decade, but it's not sex trafficking. It's not what the federal government says. But he had to say that because he had to come out and apologize for the video because it was on video.
Exactly.
And the video became public. And so there's a lot of scrutiny about how the video became public or why the video became public. That's one thing. But from the perspective of the public, now when he comes out and says, I didn't do that, I'm denying it. These are people that are for a money grab. Well, you lost a little credibility in the way that that video became public at the outset of the case, at that civil case. So only a matter of time to see how that particular issue plays into the criminal case.
One of the things I was thinking about too, whether that tape, the tape was there was a lot of focus on it during the bail proceedings in court. Can't imagine seeing that tape play, although who knows? I mean, the prosecution wants to play that tape in front of a jury during the trial. But the theory is to get in front of the judge, to have that happen, unless the prosecutor can interweave Cassie Ventura just some of the allegations that she may have been at these parties, describing these parties, whether she testifies something to bring that video in. I mean, certainly if we were prosecuting the case, we want that video played as often as conceivably possible to show, obviously, what Combs is capable of doing. But we'll have to see. I mean, I can't imagine. Yes, it was definitely a focus during the bail hearings. I think the judge is going to take a very careful eye to see if that can actually come in.
The defense is definitely going to try and keep it up, but we already know what the prosecution argument is because it came out during the bail hearings.
Right.
That the prosecution says that the video of Diddy and Cassie in that hallway was happening during a freak-off, that actually in the hotel room there was a male prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
And so the prosecution's argument is this is exactly the heart of the conduct that are the allegations and the criminal charges against Diddy. And so their argument is because it's part of the freak-off, part of a freak-off, she's trying to get out during that conduct. That's their whole argument, to get it in. And so I suppose, to your point, it depends on whether or not there's evidence to support that was actually what was occurring during that time.
Exactly.
Because his argument is the opposite. His argument is that this was a domestic dispute, and although his actions are regrettable, it's an assault. And that's all it is. It doesn't fit into the overall federal statute that he's being charged with. So we don't know, sitting here today, we can tell you what the prosecution's argument is. The prosecution's argument is it happened during a freak-off, so of course it's relevant. We don't know what evidence they have to support that. But we'll see. That will certainly be a central part of the case because you play that video to a jury.
Oh my gosh.
It's really going to matter, and it's going to frame the way that they view the rest of the evidence. So the defense is going to go crazy trying to keep it out. The other way, I think the defense... So say there's veracity, and again, we're so early on that we don't really know everything yet because discovery is still taking place and most of it's under seal, so we don't know what's being exchanged. But so say the prosecution's argument that this conduct occurred during a freak-off, there's a male prostitute in that room,
right,
and it's a freak-off, is not successful because Diddy's able to successfully, his lawyers argue that, well, even if there was a male prostitute in the room, that was just a sexual encounter that they consensually agreed upon, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But there's going to be arguments on both sides. I think the defense argument to keep it out, what we're going to see is, okay, where did the tape come from? Whose hands has it been in? Basically a chain of evidence type of argument. Because this video came up publicly. And so the prosecution was already accused at the bail hearings of altering the tape and had to admit that they did. Not altering the content of the tape, but splicing it together to not make it as long and to take out certain components of it, which they said protected a witness, but it didn't look great. During the course of that bail hearing, it was a large component of the argument is that it was not an authentic copy of the video that was shown at the bail hearings previously. And the prosecutors had to admit that it wasn't.
You could tell, too.
Yeah, you're going to really argue. You're going to be like, where's this tape been?
Right. And you can tell from the tape itself that there's a splicing that took place. There's a pause in it, which is a little odd. But you're right. I mean, I think, and we know this from arguing this in court, if there's evidence you are presenting that you have modified in any way, there's likelihood that that evidence will not come in.
Right. Well, there's going to be a lot of disputes. Actually, just given the nature of the racketeering charges, because a lot of the basis for the racketeering charges are criminal conduct of others that they say was in furtherance of the criminal conspiracy and Diddy's criminal enterprise. And from a defense perspective, you're going to fight tooth and nail to say, no, that was an assault by this guy against that guy. Where's
exactly.
Diddy? That was a crime. That was a state level crime against this guy and that gal. But where's Diddy? He's not there. He's not a part of it by virtue of their own testimony, by virtue of their own account. These are people who are, this is definitely what the defense is going to say, whether or not it is effective, we don't know. But you can imagine the defense saying, these are individuals who are making non-prosecution deals with the government so that they don't get prosecuted for crimes that they're actually admitting to.
Yes.
They're telling you they did them. So there's certainly a way to impugn the credibility of those individuals in that sense, or maybe in certain instances, keep some of that testimony out of the courtroom. It's too premature to opine on it because we don't really know exactly what it's going to be.
Well, at least the prosecution, if they want to introduce the evidence, if they've done anything to it, they've got 6 months to clean up to make sure that it doesn't get excluded.
Right. Or you could see a superseding indictment that maybe opens up other doors or other charges or other types of legal theories in the indictment that a grand jury blessed that could potentially cover some of those buckets. We just don't know because so much of this case is under seal as the exchanges are going on. And
no cameras in the courtroom, so it's all being through interpretation of those that are present. So it'll be interesting. But I think to your point though, Missy, I don't think it's going to be fairly quiet unless there's some traction on the appeals that are pending. The appeals on the denial of bail and then the appeal on the habeas corpus denial as well.
Absolutely. I think you're right. You're right that there's going to be a little bit of a lull here from the public perspective because a lot of the evidence is under seal. It's not being publicly disclosed, of course, to protect witnesses and alleged victims. What we will likely continue to see is this rolling basis of civil cases. So what to look out for? Let's do our bullet points. So will we see a superseding indictment? Will there be any movement on that appellate bail hearing? And then it really is just off to the races trial preparation. So we may learn, and this is what you can look out for if you're interested in this case, you may learn from evidentiary motions that are going to be happening from now until May. There's going to be issues regarding what evidence is coming into the courtroom. There'll be dismissal sought by the defense. There's going to be a lot of motion practice. So a lot of that's likely to be redacted, but we can probably learn a bit about the defense theory of the case and the prosecution theory of the case from those submissions. Either way, we will keep you up to speed as more of this case develops.
Let's go.
Okay, so as far as Daniel Penny is concerned, the closing arguments are taking place as we're recording this. So by the time you are all listening to this, the closing arguments will have already taken place and the case will likely be with the jury. So here's what happened in the courtroom today. The judge said that he anticipates that the closing arguments are going to take all day today. And then the jury is going to be dismissed today. And then they're going to get the case tomorrow. Now, something we don't know that we will know when tomorrow rolls around, whether or not the jury instructions are read today, whether or not there's going to be argument about what those jury instructions are going to say, whether or not the jury will come back tomorrow just to deliberate, or whether or not they'll be going through the jury instructions in the morning. And that's largely going to depend on the length of the closing arguments and whether or not there are still open issues between the defense and the prosecution about what that verdict sheet is going to look like.
Those jury instructions are so key. I cannot imagine this judge saying, no, you're going to listen to an entire day of closing arguments and I'm going to go through the jury instructions, which take about an hour, if not more. Probably take about an hour because these are simpler charges. But still, that's something to start fresh with in the morning. I could see the judge saying, you'll come back tomorrow and we'll go through the instructions and then let them deliberate. And we know the longer it takes, the worse it is for the prosecution. Because usually those longer, although some people have different theories on that. There's a theory that says even days for the defense, odd days for the prosecution. Interesting.
Interesting, yes.
That's just something I've heard all the years I've been practicing. We'll see if that plays out.
Yeah, we'll see. The jury instructions are really going to be, I think they are a bit on the complicated side, only because you have the manslaughter charges. So you've got a reckless disregard standard. You've got a lesser included criminally negligent homicide. And then you have the instructions on self-defense as well.
Right.
And the key and the most critical element, in my opinion, from the defense perspective, what does the causation element say?
Yep.
Does it say that his actions, i.e. the chokehold, have to be the only cause, the superseding cause, or does it say a cause? Because if it says a cause, the prosecution can say even your expert said that the interaction with Penny ultimately resulted in Neely's death, even though there were other factors at play. So to me, that's from the causation argument, that's going to be the most important element. And what to listen for, what is the jury instruction on causation? But remember, they don't even have to get there if they think that, they meaning the jury, they don't have to get there if they think that he acted in self-defense and his actions were justified and proportionate to the risk. So they don't even have to go to the causation element. So it really depends on how this jury is going to interpret this case. And we know, Mercedes, that there's several people who said that they rode the subway every day, frequent subway riders. Some jurors who said that they had negative experiences in the subway recently or just on the streets of New York and had very, very negative experiences that put them in fear. And then there's some people who are kind of casual riders of the subway who said they've ridden it for a long time and they've seen a lot of things, but they never really thought about it because it's kind of the norm here. So a lot going into that. And remember, the jurors base their decision on the courtroom and on everything that came out during the trial. They're not allowed to bring in extraneous information, but they are told don't leave your common sense at the door. And they do bring in their own life experience.
Sure.
And that's going to frame the way that they're thinking about this. So to your point, I think in this case particularly, if there is a delay, and you're totally right, there's lots of different theories, but if the jury takes time to come back, that is a real positive for the defense because Definitely. It means either they can't agree
or they're trying to convince someone to exonerate.
Or they're trying to convince someone. Yeah. So we're definitely going to break that down. And on our episode Thursday, we'll make sure to cover whatever happens in the interim. I mean, we could have a verdict by then.
Yes. And if it does, then we'll just do a quick update.
Absolutely. But we will keep you posted. And we're following the closing arguments as they unfold. I'm reading from our reporter that we're working with that there's the overflow room was too packed. So there's a little bit of, I think, chaos relating to just the media coverage. So we're gonna continue to follow that.
Let's go.
Another story that has been in the news recently is a case that was headed to the courtroom. It was headed to trial and then stopped dead in its tracks. So this is the trial of James Tolliver Craig. If you recall, he is the Colorado dentist who is suspected of poisoning his wife in order to start a new life with another woman, a Texas-based orthodontist. And he has been accused of poisoning his wife with potassium cyanide and essentially putting potassium cyanide in her morning protein shake. This caused her to have headaches and dizziness, and then she deteriorated rapidly in an intensive care unit. She was declared medically brain dead soon after and was taken off life support, and police launched an investigation into her death and discovered that she was poisoned because there were suspicious details in the case relating to how quickly she deteriorated. And what police uncovered, according to the indictment, was a complex and calculated murder. So this case was headed for trial, and many people were interested in it because it was so the allegations sound like a movie.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Whenever you have a spouse that has these types of suspicious circumstances, the intimate partner is one of the first that law enforcement goes to talk to because they zero in on that intimate partner. So it wasn't a surprise that at least the focus was on the husband, and lo and behold, look what manifests.
Exactly. You're completely right, Mercedes, because once that investigation was underway, they found the potassium cyanide, found that he had purchased it. They also uncovered these communications between the woman that he was leaving his wife for. Probably would have been easier to just get a divorce.
Get divorced. It's so crazy.
But my goodness. And so, of course, look, he's going to trial, so he's innocent until proven guilty. But as you laid out, Mercedes, he was the first person they looked at, and they ended up finding corroborative evidence that was going to be presented at trial. So this case is, that was in March when she died. So this case actually is going to trial relatively quickly. But last week, something interesting happened. And everybody kind of, the question marks went up because his lawyer made an application to the court to be removed from the case and cited various professional rules, saying that in order to continue his representation, he would have to violate professional rules of ethics. So an in-camera hearing was held, and the attorney was able to withdraw from the case. And just so M&Ms, you understand, especially when a case is on the eve of trial, it's not that an attorney can just say, I don't want to work on this case anymore. There has to be court approval in order to do so. And this was a court-appointed attorney. And so there's a process in place. So an in-camera hearing was held. We didn't know what happened at the hearing. But just by virtue of what the attorney was raising, the professional ethics violations, it seemed that there was something more to this. And especially when the attorney was able to withdraw shortly thereafter. So what happened? Well, right after the attorney withdrew, there's new allegations and new charges against Craig that he allegedly attempted to have an Aurora police detective who was investigating his wife's death killed, and that he was actually soliciting a fellow inmate in jail to commit the crime. And it happened once in May and June 2023, and then again last month. So that's the basis for the new charges. And now it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense why the defense attorney said, I cannot handle this case
no kidding,
moving forward. And so, especially if there is ongoing criminal activity, who knows how they found out about it? Maybe there were jail recordings. Maybe there's a jailhouse snitch. We don't know. But if the attorney found out that there was an ongoing plan to commit a crime, then the attorney actually has to withdraw under the evidentiary rules.
And notify the authorities, because that's one thing that we have to thwart. As attorneys, we have to thwart the commission of a crime. If we are made aware that a client, that's the one thing that you can do, is to sever that attorney-client privilege, because many of you know M&Ms, once you retain a lawyer and you discuss your issues and problems, it's all cloaked in secrecy under the attorney-client privilege. But in those exchanges with their clients, you're not permitted to allow for there to be a commission of the crime. So, Mr., you're exactly right. If he was planning and continuing to plan, and that attorney was aware of it, has to sever that attorney-client relationship, notify the authorities, notify the judge, and stop the commission of the crime from taking place. I mean, we remember this from law school. There was a case that we talked about in school where a criminal defense attorney helped bury literally helped bury the body.
It happened where I'm from. It's in Syracuse. Yeah,
No
it's a very infamous case. Yeah. They wouldn't tell the family where the body was buried.
That is so bizarre. I didn't realize that was in Camillus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. And that was one of those cases where your client's about to commit a crime. Number one, you can't assist them. And number two, you have to stop the commission of the crime, contact law enforcement. And this particular attorney took it one step further and actually assisted in the commission of the crime by burying the body with the client, which is crazy.
That's the professional rule. But in this particular case, to your point, Mercedes, listen to the new charges. He's charged with solicitation to commit murder in the first degree and solicitation to commit perjury in the first degree.
Oof.
So both of those, an attorney cannot suborn perjury, and an attorney has to step forward and alert authorities and sever the attorney-client relationship if they know there is an ongoing commission of a crime or attempt to commit a crime. So no surprise, once that came out, we're like, okay, we get why the attorney sought that in-camera hearing, but it was pretty clear something was going on. I don't think we knew that it was going to be such serious allegations ultimately leading to new charges. But we'll keep an eye on this case. I mean, now a new attorney has to come into the fold. It's likely the case will be delayed to give that attorney time to catch up, because he still pled not guilty to everything. So
unbelievable.
Still pled not guilty to everything. So a new attorney is going to come in, and have to move forward with the case, but it's likely that there'll be some time
Right.
to get them up to speed. Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens, but we'll keep an eye on it and we'll bring you updates on that case as well. All right, M&Ms, stick around for Coffee and Cases.
Let's go.
Okay, M&Ms, here we are, Coffee and Cases.
Yay.
So remember the Wisconsin man who faked his own death and drowning this summer?
Sure
Well,
do.
He's back in the news. He's been located in Eastern Europe, and he's now communicating with law enforcement, but he will not commit to returning home. So he began communicating with the authorities on November 11th after they tracked him down. The sheriff showed a video that this man, Borgwart, sent police that day from an undisclosed location. So as of now, there's no charges that have been filed. And the sheriff said he doesn't think they will be necessarily, while authorities keep, quote, pulling at his heartstrings to come home. So it's funny because it seems that there, of course, is the ability to potentially bring charges. And right now, they don't exactly know where he is. They know he's in Eastern Europe. He's confirmed that he's okay. He said he did what he thought was right for his family, which I don't understand how that could possibly be.
Sure, abandon your wife and your children and fake your death. So can you imagine the pain and suffering they went through? Sure, that all sounds very reasonable, sir. Come on, give me a break.
Come on.
Give me a break.
And it was to the tune of $35,000 at least. That was the cost for the search and for the investigation and everything relating to that. So resources that could have gone to somebody else and somebody who's actually in need that go to him. But here's why he said why he did it. He faked his death and fled because of, quote, personal matters, thinking it was the right thing to do. And now the investigators and the police department and the sheriff have said that they're trying to get him to come home. But I don't know, because I think there's actually a bigger problem here than just being faced with false police report or obstruction or whatever state level charges he could be.
Insurance fraud, if there was an insurance policy too.
That's it.
Insurance
I think
policy.
that's the big dog.
Yeah, that's the big one.
That's the big one. $37,000 life insurance policy in January for his family. So if he steps back onto U.S. soil, he could have a significant problem.
Definitely. And what's his defense? I mean, he's spoken so much. He's given so many admissions. What's his defense? I left for personal reasons. Okay. Yeah. It's a lot of planning to sort of disappear from a kayak. Though can't say that I had temporary insanity. There's a lot of premeditation that leads to your disappearance.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, listen to this. There's a whole thing. I want to exactly go through what he allegedly told the sheriff, because this, I think, was very interesting. He told authorities he overturned his kayak on the lake, dumped his phone in it, and paddled an inflatable boat to shore. He chose Green Lake because it is Wisconsin's deepest lake. He then rode an electronic bike stashed by a boat launch 70 miles through the night to Madison. From there, he traveled by bus to Detroit and then Canada, where he boarded a plane. Okay.
Oh, my God.
That is a complicated plan. That is a complicated plan.
That is not temporary insanity. That is complete premeditation, lots of planning. No. So that's what I'm saying. What is his defense going to be? Not to mention, you're going to come back and face the family that you abandoned and put through all this misery through. Oh, no. There's going to be a lot of anger if he ever comes back.
Right. Well, he said he's not yet decided to return home. And if he does, it will be of his own free will, according to the sheriff. The deputies are stressing to him the importance of returning home and cleaning up the mess he made. The sheriff suggested that he could be charged with obstructing the investigation into his disappearance, but no counts have been filed. And they're just trying to get him to come home. And he has said that he did not expect the search to last more than 2 weeks. And his biggest concern is how the community will react to him if he returns. So, I think it would be very, very complicated.
Definitely.
To try and extradite him from Eastern, wherever he is, because they don't really exactly know where he is. He's confirmed he's safe and he's alive. But it would be very complicated to extradite him, even if they brought charges. So in my mind, the kind of, all right, we're not going to bring charges right now. We'll analyze it when he gets back and see if it's necessary. But
Sure.
the sheriff wouldn't have jurisdiction over any sort of charges relating to insurance fraud, which could be federal. So there's a lot of issues floating around. But geez, this is just such a twisted story. And I just found it so crazy. To your point, the amount of planning. Oh, then there's an inflatable boat. Then it's an electronic bike, and placing all that stuff there. Organizing, driving, all of that time, taking the bus, getting to the airport. Come on.
It's like that movie, right? Trains, planes, and automobiles. It took every form of, kayak, trains, planes, and automobiles.
Jeez.
Took every single mode of transportation to get to where he wanted to go, just so that his family can get the $37,000. I can't imagine that was the policy, was the driving force behind it, to go and start a new life. I know it's been reported there was some love interest that may have been involved. It's reported. Who knows if it's true or not?
Yeah, we don't know if it's true, but that's what was reported, that a part of the investigation that kind of opened up the narrative that the police put forward that was reported is that they got his electronic devices and he had tried to delete all of these messages between him and somebody in Eastern Europe where he ultimately ended up. And it was through some sort of app, a romantic connections type app that he tried to delete it all. So it kind of looked like, okay, well, maybe that's why he went there. And then that triggered more and more of an inquiry into this case. Anyway, just get divorced.
Yes. Hello. So much easier.
Come on.
You wouldn't have to go. Actually, your divorce probably would have cost you less than $37,000 and lots less headache.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I feel very bad for the family, but hopefully this guy comes home and just, you know what? Take accountability for it.
Face the music.
Figure it out. So, in cuter news, after Thanksgiving,
Yay.
this
I
is
like
a
this
really
story.
cute story. A woman in Parma, Ohio, set the table and left at a Thanksgiving feast for some of the neighborhood animals ahead of the holiday on Wednesday, November 27th, and served this meal to her, quote, outdoor friends. Roast chicken, stuffing, sliced cranberry sauce, and other Thanksgiving staples was laid out on a proper white tablecloth presentation. At least 2 cats showed up and a possum took a chicken wing to go.
So cute.
Very cute.
I like the pictures too. Isn't that so sweet? See, if we did that, we'd just get an entire herd of deer. So I'm not sure we want to do that.
I know.
I love deer, though. They're
raccoons.
very cute. Oh, raccoons, too. I forgot about that. And some possum as well. We actually saw an eagle fly by the house. It was so large that it actually cast a shadow in the house.
Oh, my
It was
gosh.
unbelievable. It's a bald eagle that has a nest somewhere. So that would have been cool if we put some food out and the bald eagle stopped in for a visit. That would have been very cool.
Oh, yeah. We see hawks here. I've not seen an eagle, but you definitely can hear them from a very long distance.
Yes.
But I do think that Thanksgiving foods here would have been taken quite quickly. You would have a lot of visitors for about 5 minutes, and then there would be all gone.
True.
All right. M&Ms, thank you so much for spending the morning with us. Make sure to tune in on Thursday. We'll give you an update on all of the cases.
Have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Let's go.